All right, so what I want to start with is a quick reminder of what I'm going to be looking for in terms of how I assess your work over this last week or two, and it really depends, the time depends on whether you're a senior or not. The way that I assess you doesn't. I'm going to evaluate everybody the same way, whether you're a senior or whether you're not. So basically what it boils down to is this. You have the option of getting full credit on the work we do simply by engaging in what we do in a positive way and showing me with your actions and your questions and your conversations that you are trying to figure this stuff out. So you're trying to learn the material and figure this stuff out. With just a couple weeks left, I don't want to put you in high pressure situations. I don't want to give you big tests. I don't want to put you in a situation that feels stressful for you. I would like this to be fun. I would like this to be relatively relaxed, and it's really important to me personally that people still learn. I get some of you make the argument or have heard the argument, well, there's just a week left or 2 weeks left, why are we even? And I get that, I really do. I understand your point, and what I would ask is understand my point as well, which is, well, we're here, we might as well learn. And what I would like to do is meet you halfway. And so the halfway point for me is you don't have to do a lick of work outside of class if you don't want to. You don't have to do any thinking, any work, but if you come here and use your class time to try to think about physics, I'll try to make it fun as possible, and then what I hope is in the end you leave here and you've learned a little something and it hasn't made your life appreciably more miserable. Having said that, those of you who either aren't, if you aren't here, for a chunk of time, or if you're a senior and you are looking for a way to bring your grade up, then I am happy to evaluate your work for like mastery of concepts and stuff. So I'm not going to force anybody to do that. I'm certainly not going to force seniors to do any work that you're not required to be in school for. But that is an option. If you're looking at your grade and you would like a higher grade, then you have a way to earn some additional points potentially. And the way that is going to happen is by me looking at the evaluation work that we do during what will be like Friday of next week and then Monday and Wednesday of the last week of school. So that work is going to be something seniors, you'll be excused from that, but if you don't like your grade and you want to improve it, you are welcome to be here and do that work. And I'll score it and it'll go into the grade book and it will increase your grade. So your grade won't drop if you don't do it, but you have the opportunity to bring it up as well. And those of you who aren't here for some of the days in class, I may ask you to do some of that work because I won't be able to evaluate your work in here. So if that ends up being something that's important to you, you and I can talk about it. We're still going to do the work. The question is, how do I evaluate it? Do I evaluate it based on what I see in the classroom, or do I evaluate it based on mastery of concepts? And you have control over that. You get to pick which of those we do. My default is going to be, I'm going to look at the work that you do in the classroom and evaluate your engagement and effort, because I think that's going to be most fun and easiest for all of you. But anybody who wants more evaluation based on understanding, if that is going to work better for you, I'm happy to do it. So we can talk about that individually. For today, what I want to focus on, there's two things we're going to look at. And they're both really related to the same idea, which is what underlies what we call simple harmonic motion. It's characterized by something relatively straightforward. And so we're looking at that today. There's a bunch of pieces that sort of branch off from that basic underlying feature. Simple harmonic motion is characterized really by one thing. And because of that one thing, we see a bunch of other properties that make it interesting to us. So what I want to start with is by having you all graph the data that you collected on Wednesday with your pendulums. And if you weren't able to collect data, that's okay. You can do it today. There'll be time. It just takes a second. And as a reminder, what I was looking for you to do was measure some displacements and then make a graph of displacement versus time. So what I recommended that you do is take a pendulum and set it up so that it swings back and forth. And I told you, well, as it turns out, we are not actually looking at linear motion here. We have this like curved path that the pendulum is following, but effectively, if you keep this angle kind of small, like on either side 20 degrees to the vertical or so. I mean, it's not a like hard and fast number so much as it is a general guideline. If we keep that angle relatively small, then the arc length here ends up being almost exactly the same as the horizontal component of its motion if we're using a fixed vertical and horizontal reference frame, okay? The motion in a curved path here is almost exactly the same as its left to right motion because there's very little vertical motion here. And so that allows us to simplify our measurements, and what I suggested you do is take a video. So you hold your camera up above your pendulum so that you're looking down at it like this, and then you put a ruler underneath it like this. Then as your pendulum swings back and forth, you can move frame by frame and evaluate where it is on the ruler below it. And that ends up being a very good measurement of position. And the easiest way to do this probably is to say that the middle, the equilibrium position is 0. So whatever your ruler says, just think of that as position 0. And then positions to the right will be positive, positions to the left will be negative, which means if we look at position versus time on a graph, you'll have your maximum position up here at the top, your minimum position down here on the bottom, and the equilibrium position is going to be 0 right here. So this will be position, and you can use meters or centimeters. For what we're doing now, it makes no difference at all. And then we know that if we were to evaluate this motion with respect to time, we know what it would look like. And by convention, this is a little weird. There's actually reasons for this, but by convention, when we are looking at the motion of this object as it moves like to what looks like left to right to you right now, we consider this to be the starting point, the equilibrium point. You don't have to for what we're doing now, but that's generally what we do. So we know it's going to start at position 0. Then it's going to move for a while, and it's going to get to some maximum position. And then it's going to move for a while. It's going to get back to 0. It's going to move for a while, get to some minimum position, and finally get back to 0. So if we were looking down on it, it's going to move like this. It's going to go this way, and then this way, and then end up back to here. Okay. And so we know it's going to hit these points, and the symmetry of the situation suggests that it's going to hit its maximum distance halfway between the equilibrium point. So it'll hit its maximum negative difference between, or distance between these equilibrium points, and it'll hit its maximum positive difference between these equilibrium points. And what I want you to do, instead of just like connecting these 5 dots or interpolating what you think the graph would look like, I want you to actually make the graph. I would suggest using Excel. There were some groups that did it with Excel. There were some groups that got a lot of data. If you film at 30 frames per second, you could easily get 20 or 30 data points in here. The groups that earlier today, some of them got a bunch more, and they actually had several cycles. Okay, and you can do one cycle or several cycles. It doesn't matter. the point is that what you're going to see is the same. You should be able to guess what you see, which is that it should be a sine curve, right? So that's why we start at 0, by the way, because if we start at position 0, the sine is 0, and then as we increase, the sine gets bigger to 1, and then back to 0, and then -1, and then back to 0. So by convention, this is all arranged such that the position versus time of this pendulum is going to form a sine curve. Okay? And so I would just use sheets. You can do it by hand if you want, but it'll be a lot quicker and easier and more accurate if you use Google Sheets. And as you do this, there's two things to think about. One is, when it comes to the time, you've actually got a really easy way of marking this. You don't even need to keep track of the times as you're clicking. You just need to keep track of the distance, and then the only time you really need to know is the one at the end, because the one at the end represents one full cycle. So let's say you were doing 30 frames per second. Let's say that you ended up with 40 frames by the end. Well, that's 40 times 1/3, that's 4/3 of a second, that's 1.33 seconds. And then from here, we can just divide, right? We know that it hits this point halfway, so this is going to be about 0.62 seconds, and this is going to be about, 0.67 seconds. This is going to be about 0.33 seconds. This is obviously 0, and this is going to be at about 1 second. So we can easily fill in the times afterward, and then you can just kind of come up with a linear map of your times, because you know that that's what it's going to be, with 1/30th of a second for each frame. And then, more importantly, we talked on Wednesday, and we're going to continue to talk on next week, starting Wednesday of next week. We're going to look at the idea that these times also correspond to angular positions. So there's some way in which we're going to look at this back and forth swinging as a right and left motion, and then we're going to take that and we're going to think about it as circular motion. And it turns out we can kind of map all of those things in the same way. If we think about this as circular motion, then we can think about angular position, and when we look at our x-axis on this graph in terms of angular position, what we're going to see is this corresponds to 0 radians, this is pi over 2, this is pi, this is 3 pi over 2, and this is going to be 2 pi radians. And that seems like a weird way to look at it, because it's like, why would we want to think about this as circular motion? But that is what's going to tie all the stuff that we do together with simple harmonic motion. The key characteristic of objects that are experiencing simple harmonic motion is that they are experiencing linear restoring forces with respect to position. And we're going to build the case that that's going to result in a sine curves, or like out of phase sine curves, for position, velocity, acceleration, and net force when they're graphed versus time. So the characteristic motion of objects experiencing simple harmonic motion is a product of a very simple physical phenomenon, which is a linear restoring force with respect to position. So that's going to kind of put all of this stuff together. So for the first part of the period, I want you to make a good graph. Don't just plot these 5 points and then like connect the dots. Actually collect the data. Kind of go through the motions of what people did when they were first discovering all of this stuff. As you do that, think about the fact that one period can also be thought of in a weird way as a full circle. So somehow we're turning time into angular displacement as an object moves in a circular path. And that's weird because we don't have an object moving in a circular path. There is no actual angular displacement here, and it's very strange to try to put those things together. But once we do, you'll see the power of using angular displacement rather than time for considering the motion of the objects that we're going to be examining. Okay, so this is step one. I'm going to give you some time to work on that, and then I'm going to walk through the second piece and give you some time to work on some additional stuff, right? I'm going to stop the recording real quick.